Good afternoon, everyone. I hope I've not snowed you with too many facts and figures, but business, the world, and our industry is going to see more rapid change into the future, and the pace of this change is due to get faster and faster. My comments and observations this afternoon are based on referencing some research materials from technology and learning commentators, our own Atlas Usage and Awareness industry study, which we just completed in October and November of this year. We surveyed 30,000 learners with a response rate of 6% and a smaller group of 140 training providers from the oil and gas sector. So my comments this afternoon are based on these three sources. So just as man needed water to start the evolution process, and after all this hugely significant change, exponential change in our world and working lives, the more that some things in our industry change, the more they remain the same. Short-termism, issues of morale, engagement, and concerns over safety, and the apparent lack of appreciation of the individual or learner. And man's quest to secure sustainable water resources remains paramount and just as pertinent today. So how is the industry preparing the workforce for a changed future? We have seen three phases of engagement with the worker or workforces over time, but this time with millennials, who will make up 50% of the workforce by 2025 and 70% of the workforce in the US, it will be different. Our training regimes have responded to these phases. First of all, we've had the mechanical or scientific man, rational, payment-orientated, technically expert with limited leadership and skills focus, who have come through their organizations where they've been from early stages. People worked in large companies, run by lifers, and who were products of the bureaucracies who had borne them. We then moved on, more recently to the knowledge worker. Less on drill bits and more about bytes. Technology and technological change is everywhere. We are more connected, more data. We created in 2015 8 zettabytes of data, and that is, for those who are not experts, is 8 times 10 to the power of 21. And this is due to increase from 8 to 40 by the year 2020. The concept of big data is there to help us analyze connections in an open source way. We are now moving into the age of the learner with millennials, more discerning workers, more promiscuous in their careers, less loyal and more about them. Good talent will be harder to keep. The individual is more in control, or else they will move and can expect to have 10 to 14 jobs by the time they are 38 years of age. The war for talent will enter a new phase. So the industry needs to recognize that learner-age people are different. And so when the confidence of the sector comes back, it engages with the individuals differently and for the modern times of 2020. So what will the learner generation look like in the 2020s? It's not an age thing, but a mindset thing. They are concerned just as much about sustainability and prosperity as money, and expect to work for organizations where their and their organization's moral values are aligned. To quote BP's former CEO, Lord Brown, "Doing good is good business." Our Atlas survey showed 70% of current workers want learning which prepares them for being fit for the future. 44% are initiating their own learning, focused on skills, career, and personal development. 88% of our survey claimed to know what they needed, but only 1 out of 2 believe their current employers did offer it. Possibly as a result of the survey, 25% are claiming to be considering a move outside the industry over the next 12 months, due to better work and life balance, better job security, better career prospects, and 23% for a more safe working environment. And also 20% claim to have had no training of any type in the last 12 months. So what innovation is being developed for the workforce safety and competency for the 2020s? We have seen innovation in learning and competency space also being impacted by stop and start practices and short-termism. Volumes have been cut to the lowest of levels. We see that in our trading numbers. Our sector has a tradition of innovation. We use adaptive and lessons learned technologies and have done so in MIST and IMIST from OPITO for a number of years. The new digital standards approach to learning promises to kickstart a sustainable program of modernizing learning, reflecting the behaviors and expectations of the diverse generations and different origins and races of individuals in the workforce. It promises to reduce duplication and to give back to both the learner, their organizations, and their families. Meanwhile, at Atlas Knowledge, we are looking to fulfill the demand for more skills and safety leadership programs, accredited, portable, and recognized in different countries and within different sectors of energy and safety-critical industries. The pace, ladies and gentlemen, of change is quickening. Moore's Law talks about the speed of change and the adoption of new technologies. Originally, it talked of doubling in terms of connectivity, use of devices, and the generation of data every 3 years. Now it is doubling every 2 years. Smartphones are commonplace, connectivity is now global, and where it's not, there are technologies such as the ones we use in Atlas to replicate connectivity. Now there are, according to Bersin by Deloitte, 7,200 learning apps for phones, making it easier to deploy and more intuitive for the learner and easier to take with them as they move around the globe. So, what types of training are required and what are the new methods of delivery? The new types of training includes more technical skills, environmental impact content, and also personal and leadership skills. The learners in this new age want them, and employers need them too, recognizing the need to work differently or risk losing talent into the 2020s. This lack of talent, new employees with shorter periods of experience in the job, and a lack of personal skills will not help address all issues for the moment. However, concerns about workplace safety still remain top in the minds of employees, not helped by the loss of experienced workers across the industry. The technology becomes more open to all, not too company-specific, enough to make the cost of adoption lower, and which allows transferability of skills within a country or across industry possible. So what are the new methods of delivery and what is possible? Technology will be embedded to support the on-the-job learning experience. 70% of effective learning is on the job. It also supports the 20% of learning that is social and collaborative with colleagues and their communities, and only 10% is learned through formal means. From a digital perspective, which is my focus, we see more. More use of digital learning within blended programs. We recognize that learners forget. Ebbinghaus tells us that the forgetting curve shows that we forget 50% within 1 hour of doing a formal program. And within 31 days, we have forgotten 80% of it. So we need to push out and top up with more learning bits. When the learner needs it, in a format they find more natural, to be done when they and where they want to, and not before they head home to their families. We need to recognize the convenience of it all and be more learner-centric in all that we do. We need shorter learning courses, use more adaptive techniques, not repeating what the learner already knows. Test the learner more. Adaptive passing means that the learner does not need to do it all on a time-based cycle. Tell stories, use scenarios based to improve risk, leadership, and overall decision-making, especially to simulate under-pressure situations. Reduce duplication and give back time to be reinvested to support safety more. Give the learner pathways to career progression and recognize movement within, across industries, and across the globe. So what type of future collaboration do we need to ensure that safety and competence is fit for the future? We should be reminded that safety is not a source of competitive advantage between companies, but some companies still charge workers to take their training records with them. Some should know better. Collaborative techniques and verification services should abandon such practices once and for all, as to being ascribed to a world of work from a different period. We, as an industry, have a history of collaborating well. The new OPITO Digital Standards Project has taken on board the views of industry through 5 regions of the world. Not an easy task, and I'm hopeful that this thinking will create a new era of relevant collaboration into the future. The working individual of the future will expect to be at the center of the organization's sustainable outputs. They will move with their feet otherwise. They will expect to work differently with leaders in business who will need to deploy new techniques and skills to remain credible and remain recognized as the leader. They will often lead from the back and support others more. Respect has to be earned and is not a rite of passage with the title, or the social networks will cease to have the truth well out. Collaborating with the individual is more than an annual appraisal or employee engagement study. It will recognize the learner in all that is done. For example, where she works, when she works, how she works, what devices she uses, the outputs she creates, her own career path. She shapes her work, shares information, wishes to be seen as an expert and potential leader, uses technology platforms to share and receive data. She deploys adaptive techniques to keep her skills and behaviors fresh and current. She feels comfortable learning, sharing, and teaching. If the organization does not recognize these different expectations, then it may be one of the 10 to 14 jobs the learner has, and your reputation rated and shared with others. These millennials will be different. They will move with their feet. The primacy around safety will not be non-negotiable. You've been warned. So just in case you think the male will be replaced altogether, the average millennial will be a 34-year-old Indian male, better educated than ever before, living in a world where 30% of the population in the US will be Latino by origin, and there will be more people over the age of 55 years in the workforce than under it. This sector and industry performs some essential and safety-critical things to the environment, including the pursuit of sustainable water sources, where technology and collaboration will also play its part. Leadership will become rightly harder and more accountable. Organizations will need to evolve, and in my opinion, to be smaller, more flexible, and will be more creative and accountable with flatter structures and less hierarchy. We should recognize and plan for the challenges and adapt. This sector does some great things and keeps people safe. You adapt to such challenges every day. We need to evolve further as we move into the 2020s and better explain the benefits to our communities of an integrated energy approach. I wish you well, and thank you for listening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Robert, for your comprehensive presentation. And now our next speaker is the Vice President for QHSES Asia Pacific, TechNIP, John Christian.
G'day, guys. You've probably been killed and to death by PowerPoints, haven't you? Guys, all I'm going to say to you is, first of all, I apologise if any of you are being blind by these lights coming off my head. Secondly, I'd like to point out that this is not a workplace incident. It's not recordable, okay? I would actually like to say I did it sort of something like breakdancing. It wasn't. And after 20 years of playing rugby, doing mixed martial arts and boxing, I retired. And Neil, I think you actually said, John, you should play golf. So I took Neil's advice and I went along and tried to play golf. I was amazed that little white ball caused the injury. No one hit me with it, it's just how bad I was playing. So it's not work-related. You've all seen this, haven't you? Guys, it's doom and gloom, isn't it? The paper, every time you read the paper, you open it up, the industry's over. Oil prices collapsing, oil and gas industry in crisis. And we're sighing. The headlines read something like this. O&G industry facing unprecedented, harsh, prolonged crisis. 350,000 workers lose their jobs. Companies are going bust. Intense competition. What does it mean to us, though? I saw the word safety. What it means to me is about that H word. It's the health of our employees and those guys as well. Because I'm telling you, in the industry, the morale at the present moment is pretty low. A lot of people we know have lost their jobs. And the ones who have still got employments are saying every day, have I got a job? And the worst thing you do now is walk through an office with an envelope in your hand. Because everybody ducks for cover. Oh, that's not my letter, is it? So what have we got to do? What have we got to do? It's quite simple, survive. We've got to become smarter, yeah, more efficient, a little bit more leaner. And let's be honest, I'm looking around the room, there's some pretty grey hair old buggers in the room, including myself. We've gone through this many times. We haven't learned from our lessons. We've got a little bit fat, a little bit slow, a little bit greedy, and we haven't considered how we can bring these young people in to make us think a little bit smarter. I actually asked if I could use this, and then Hamish, I think I've got the title wrong, because I said targeting. I shouldn't be targeting anything, should I? It shouldn't be targeting perfect HSC culture. It should be an expectation, shouldn't it? Because target is something I may not actually get, and it's okay, because it's just a target. Impressive title, but is achievable in the current market and the future market. As I said, we're all now looking at how we can get better at this job. We all keep hearing the words, be more productive, be lean, be more efficient. At the same time, we're also being told to reduce our prices between 20 and 40%. I heard a question before earlier on about the training provider. Does that mean you can still train? Where is the money coming from? Where are we cutting the money? Is HSC considered something we really want, or is it just an add-on? If anybody thinks that, I think you should get up and get out the room. Because it's no add-on. It's no add-on. Is it good business? I don't know. I think it is, but I'm biased. My short answer, can we do it? Is no. And the reason I say no is because it's that word perfect. Perfect HSC. The real question, I suppose, is why do I want a perfect HSC climate in these current times or better times? I don't. What I want is a climate where I stop hurting people. What I want is a climate where people buy in. That's what I want. You know, I was in a project a little while ago, And I was talking to some civil workers, and they said, John, this is the first time we've ever worked on an oil and gas project. And I've looked across the field. I said, where's the oil and gas project? They said, this is an oil and gas project. I said, mate, you're pushing dirt and knocking down trees. That's what you're doing. This is a civil project. Oh, no, but we're working for an oil and gas company. I said, so you tell me then, what are you doing different? And there was a pause. About an hour later, he asked me to go to his office. And I went to his office. He said, John, this is what we're supposed to do different. And that was a list of procedures and processes this poor person had to comply with. We want to get efficient. We really want to try and get this right. We've got to really consider what we're doing in the industry and how we can address that and change the mindset where it's too hard to work for us. You look at the graph down, and I was intrigued when I found this graph because it actually looks like we haven't improved much since 1970 to 2009. And I'm sure we have. Maybe the reporting was poor in the past. Are we continuously willing to invest to achieve this HSC perfect climate when we're still continuously hurting people and injuring them? Or is this the reason why we're investing? You know, these are questions I'm posing, so I'm hoping you're going to challenge me later. So I'd hate to think we're purely investing because we're hurting and killing people. We should be investing because it's good business. That's what we should be investing for. When we say enough is enough, guys, you don't need new procedures, you don't need new processes. We just got to step back and go back to the basics. Training providers in the room, you know, have you ever asked me what I want, or are you trying to sell me something? That's what I really like. Come and ask me what I want, what that young civil worker wants. And he doesn't need to be killed by PowerPoint presentation. He needs someone to go in the field and show him or her what they're doing. Some facts, you know these, don't you, though? Oil price in 1996 was $20. So what are we whinging about? It's 40 now. Come on. Let's stop looking for excuses why we can't do something and do it. Interesting statistic there as well, you know. When you look at generally across all industries since that same time, injury rates have gone down between 50 and 60%. What about the fatality rates? Have they gone down? I'm sure different companies will say, yes, ours have gone down. 54 last year. That's not good, is it? It's not a target we're proud of. And they're the companies which are reporting. Actually, when you actually Google and you start looking at some of these different studies, it looks like the fatality rates haven't really come down. It's lying like this. Legislation, manslaughter charges, all these things are in place. So are we really using our money to invest, to improve, or are we putting our money there to stop us being fined? We've got to get out of a mindset change. And the mindset change has got to come from the people in this room. And the last one, overall though, and this is a positive note. Simon, I thought you was great this morning. Good speech. But also I've watched your work before, and I think I put you in this category. And mate, I'm not sucking up. Don't need to, all right? I think industry has matured. I think the leaders in the industry do see value. I think the average industry leader now doesn't send someone out and do a flick and chick sharp. They actually go out in the industry and they actually talk to people, you know, and they ask them the questions. You know, what's hard and difficult to work in these conditions? You know, an inclusive leader is someone who actually doesn't mind showing courage. And courage doesn't mean you're going to fight a lion. Courage means you show you've got weaknesses. Courage means you're quite open. You're quite willing to show you can make mistakes. Because you've got to get these people to believe in you. Is that enough? Answer, no. I just don't think we're doing enough. I really don't think we're doing enough. I think we could do so much more. I think there is so much talent within the industry that we could do so much more. If we stop over-analysing risks and actually really understand the consequences. Our industry is feeling strong constraints such as environment pressures, social complexities, budget reductions, as well as general downturn in employment. Wow, that's pretty doomy, isn't it? All I'm going to say, guys, stop complaining. This is the time we've got to step up. This is a time where we've got to be an industry which is combined. And I heard someone say, I'm not sure, I think, again, single standards, single set of rules. You know, why do we have different contractors and saying this is what we want? I was talking to Brett before, yeah? And it's about there's certain things we 100% agree on. Yes, we compete and we're competitors, but why, when I go and get a job with Shell, you ask me for one set of rules and him one for one set of rules? It should be a single set of rules, standardised system. Why do I work in a Shell field? I've got to do this. I work in a Petronas field. I've got to do this. Stop it. Stop it, guys. Let's step up, be focused, and do the right thing for the industry. It will save money. And you know what? We'll actually save lives because we'll remove the confusion. Here. We need to look at how we can better understand QHSCS. Yeah, and I put the QHSCS there because I can't emphasise how important the quality is. At the beginning, at the design phase, look at each phase, but don't confuse. You know, we talk about consequence management. People are scared to work for us. However, we dropped the price by 20 and 30%, and now we're going for second or third tier contractors. They shouldn't be scared. We should actually give them the tools they need to work in our industry. And this is something I really want everybody to understand. The people who work in this industry is an asset. Yeah? And I think the sad thing, what I've seen in this current downturn, a lot of the assets and a lot of the young people have left us. Us old fellas, we're still here. But it's the young ones which are gone, and they've gone to other industries. So they won't come back. I think we really got to value those. And what I'm saying again, look at the career development we could be doing now. Look at the investments we could be putting into our young people now. Training providers. Again, I'm not picking on you. Come and ask us the question, what do we want? And also maybe come and tell the older ones how we must engage with our young ones. To ensure we get it across. Could someone undo there? Vodka? Great. What we need to do is consolidate and establish common standards and training modules. That means you training providers got to talk as well. Yeah? I know it's a competitive world, but who wants to win the work? Introduce a step change process improvement, allowing lower tier contractors time to improve. We bring them on board. Whose job it is to mentor and coach them? It's our job. I get very frustrated when I'm going on a job and a construction manager tell me, Jono, that contractor's rubbish. Who employed him? We did. So stop complaining about the tools and get the tools to work. Introduce knowledge sharing groups. Educate and transfer the knowledge from majors to minors. Instead of giving them a big list of things they have to do, talk to them, educate them, coach them, mentor them. Instead of saying de-scope, establish industry-based line rules, i.e. why do we need life-saving rules, ZETO rules, key risk conditions? We've all got rules, and they're all the same. They're all exactly the same. Waste of paper, waste of time, have one set of industry rules across onshore, offshore and subsea. There's not a lot of difference. Stop reinventing the wheel. You know, innovation doesn't mean we have to say everything we've got is broken, because it isn't. What we've got is become more focused and stop offering excuses why someone can't do it. Principal contractors, stop blaming contractors, support through mitigation, understanding what they can do and what they can't do and helping them. I.e., again, I'm coming to the training providers. Be more mentors and coaches than people who says, this is what we want you to do. Get in the field, work with the young guys, show them, ask them. And I love this bit. Plagiarism. HSC people always plagiarize. We steal and copy, but it's not stealing and copying. Because we all want to do one thing, don't it? It's not a set of engineering drawings. Our goal at the end of the day is everybody goes home. Our goal at the end of the day is to make this industry a safer industry. Steal, borrow, whatever. Whatever I've got, you can have. My email address is jchristian@techneat.com. My phone number, you can find me. Okay? I'm saying if I've got it, I'm willing to share it. And that's how we should all be thinking when it comes to this. Introduce standardized minimum standards. And I emphasize that again because, again, when you're working with these second and third tier contractors, they are scared to work with us. And they shouldn't be scared. And understand the work, the scope we're doing. Offshore, onshore, okay? You can break that down. And there's some components where we don't have to be so strict. I was on a project a little while ago, and the contractor gave me a list of the procedures he wanted. And there was 20 procedures he was told he had to supply. And a couple which made me laugh. One was lockout and tag out. One was permit to work. And there was something about working at heights. Very good, because these are stock standard, aren't they? This is a civil worker pushing down trees. Why? So again, guys, when we hand out these documents, understand who we're handing these documents out. And let's stop scaring the contractors away. Let's start developing the contractors. Let's start sharing the knowledge. And let's make sure this industry is buoyant. Sustainability is making sure this industry stays sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John Christian from TechNip. Oh, you need a glass of water. All right, for our final speaker for this panel session, maybe please call on Gordon Ballard, the Executive Director of the International Association of Oil and Gas Producers.
Hello again, it's me. So this morning I addressed you as the chair of OPITO, and this afternoon I'm speaking as the executive director of the International Association of Oil and Gas Producers, better known as IOGP. It's been mentioned quite a few times today, and in fact John talked a lot about what we do and try to introduce across our global operations, all our members and the industry as a whole. Now, between OPITO and IOGP, it doesn't require any radical change of direction in terms of philosophy or rhetoric. Both organizations, the two organizations, complement one another extremely well. Both are forward-looking, both are rooted in a shared determination to create a safer and more sustainable industry around the world. Thanks very much. Let me give you some insight into IOGP, as has been mentioned a couple of times. So 76 members come from around the globe. Chances are you work directly or indirectly as a contractor for one of them. So together, IOGP members produce over a third of the world's oil and gas, and we help them to do that safely and responsibly. As well as the oil and gas producers, we also have many members of the National Oil and Gas Associations all around the globe. So IOGP is also acknowledged as the international voice of the global oil and gas upstream industry. I'll talk a bit more shortly about the work we do in safety, but first of all, what we do in advocacy. So in that role, we applauded the UN's efforts in Paris last year to get international agreement on the way forward with the issue of climate change. And this is important, as I said this morning, because this is about the future of our industry, one we all work in. And as we speak, on the other side of the world, the UN is holding COP22 in Marrakesh. Now, IOGP is there, representing the association in the negotiators' blue zone, right there, putting our point. Not the sole voice, but an extremely important voice against a large wave against our industry. While it's difficult to predict the outcome of this meeting, it does seem that there will be progress in low emissions pathways. And we, along with our partner OPITO, have set out those goals and how we aim to deal with COP21 and what passes on. Whatever happens in Marrakesh, oil and gas will have a continuing role to play in meeting the world's growing energy needs. Now here in Southeast Asia, that might seem like an obvious statement. Most people who live and work in this part of the world understand that and respect it, but that isn't the same back in London, where IGB has its headquarters, or in Brussels, or in New York, or Los Angeles, or anywhere where unprecedented prosperity gives people the luxury to fantasize about a carbon-free future. And that's worrying because if people all over the world don't see the need for oil and gas in decades ahead, there won't be enough to go around. They will make bad choices. And people will suffer enormously with development and growing prosperity stalled or even reversed due to energy shortages. Now, since this segment of our meeting has a Fit for the Future theme, I thought I'd start my part of the discussion by looking at this issue. It's something IOGP is spending a considerable amount of time on because it defines your future, mine, and the future of the industry as we work in. Like everything IOGP does, our campaign to make the case for oil and gas is fact-based. In this case, one of our sources is the IEA, the International Energy Agency, which is forecast that by 2040, the world will need about 25% more energy than it uses today. Now let's look at the implications of the current forecast. Now here you see a family enjoying an evening out in China. In fact, the picture could come from anywhere. It would have to be fairly recent because the so-called good old days weren't all that good for most people. It was the preserve of a lucky few nations and families. And it was only with the start and eventual spread of a modern manufacturing and trading economy that began in the 18th century that millions of people began to prosper. And even then, millions more were literally left out in the cold and the dark, and many continued to go hungry. Progress accelerated with the drilling of the world's first commercially viable oil well in 1859, and things soon changed for the better, and for more people than ever before. But why did that happen? And why? Because oil and gas are remarkable amongst natural materials in the amount of energy they contain, and the ease with which that energy can be released through combustion. Oil and gas are also easily transportable. That means that the energy condensed in them can benefit people thousands of miles from point of production. Now, the steady stream of tanker traffic that flows through the nearby Straits of Malacca is indicative of that. And even that traffic is reliant on the power concentrated in oil. Now, according to the International Chamber of Shipping, just 1 gram of marine fuel can transport 1 ton of cargo a distance of 1 kilometer. No other fuel can make that claim. And that's just one example of the efficiency of oil and gas, which is referring back to the IEA. No matter what was agreed in Paris, no matter what happens as a result of COP22 in Marrakesh, oil and gas will still be needed to meet something around half of oil energy demand. Demand for cleaner burning gas will rise, while the need for oil as a fuel will drop. Now, I'll go through all those numbers. I'll not go through all these numbers, but here you see a summary of how that demand pans out according to the various IEA scenarios. Again, the main thing to note, the most important thing to note, is that the IEA will shortly publish a new world energy outlook, not expecting any significant departures from existing forecasts. The balance of world energy will come from nuclear renewables and to a diminishing level coal. And balance is the operative word here. What we're anticipating is a balanced energy future. Now let's look at how we're working at IOGP to make that future safer and and more sustainable. IOGP was founded 42 years ago to help create an industry that is incident and injury-free. And as you know, in upstream operations can't quite make that claim yet, but we are improving, and it's the mission of IOGP's Safety Committee to accelerate progress in that direction. The current focus of our committee is on improving how the industry learns from those events we haven't been able to avoid. That means encouraging and enabling members to share lessons learned and working with safety-minded trade associations, getting the most information out of the IOGP Global Safety Performance data set, which includes process safety events, and sharing those findings as widely as possible. Paying particular attention to preventing low-frequency, high-consequence incidents, and finally improving the implementation and reach of the reports and recommendation that the committee produces. Bearing in mind this panel's focus on preparing the workforce for a changing future, I'm concentrating our work plans on just 3 areas: human factors, safety of contracted operations, and land transportation. We've talked about human factors before today, and the more we get the technology and process right in our industry, the more often the cause of incidents narrows down to people getting things wrong. In recognition of that, we set up IOGP's Human Factors Subcommittee. It helps the upstream industry manage the risk associated with human behaviour and performance. And working with other IOGP committees, such as Wells and Health, it develops guidelines to reduce risk and improve safety. Our priorities in 2017-18 include a guideline to managing fatigue in the workplace, a report on the use of behavioural markers of non-technical skills in upstream operations, work on demystifying human factors in incident investigations, and gaining better understanding on human factors and barrier management. All those will be recognisable to you. And all this builds on existing work going back almost 20 years. Now, upstream operations involve the efforts of many organisations in addition to those who officially hold operators' licences. The work of IOGP's Safety Committee is indicative of this. Our Aviation Subcommittee, for example, is diligent in promoting the adoption of IOGP's aviation management guidelines. The association is also helping to simulate the use of new technologies and forging closer links with relevant trade associations and regulators to protect transported workforce and crews. Heli Offshore is one of our newest partners. And one of our priorities this year is providing support for flight simulator training for helicopter terrain avoidance warning systems. We are constantly on the lookout for working with organizations. We seek constantly to avoid duplication. We seek partners. There are also contractor implications regarding land transportation safety. Now again, analysis of IOGP safety data between 1991 and 2012 showed a total of 501 fatalities associated with land transportation incidents, an average of 23 per year. In some years, it was the single largest cause of deaths in our industry. And I know this from my previous work in Schlumberger. It was our single largest cause of death. Since 2008, the number has gone down significantly. In our latest figures for 2015, there were 7 land transportation fatalities. 7 too many, but certainly going in the right direction. And what caused deaths to drop by an average of 2/3? So we spent the better part of a decade on producing guidelines applicable to all upstream land transportation activities. The core document is Land Transportation Safety Recommended Practices, along with its ancillary guidance documents. Now, we regard the production of these documents, and extremely importantly, the wide proliferation and application by all parties within the industry, as one of IOGP's most important successes. Our experience with land transportation also shows that by looking closely at a problem defined by past performance, you can help to create a better future. Which brings me to my final point this afternoon. And wearing my OPITO hat this morning, I refer to the challenges of market forces in the industry. Now, I'd like to close on that point as well. When times are difficult, you have to address the fundamentals. And that includes getting rid of gold plating, an inherent problem in our industry. We've heard quite a lot of it today. We're about it in terms of gold plating around training or policies and procedures. one of our biggest ones around equipment. And at IGP, we're just doing this. To accomplish this, we've set up a joint industry project to handle standardization on equipment specifications. We're doing this in conjunction with the World Economic Forum from Davos. Vision of JIP 33, as it's called, is to unlock significant value and drive a permanent reduction in project costs. We're doing this by creating, in cooperation with manufacturers and suppliers, an industry-level global set of technical specifications. And these will cover the procurement of bulk materials, packages, modules, and potentially even projects. So far, 17 of the world's largest oil and gas companies have joined the GIP. Now, GIP 33 started by focusing on ball valves, subsea Christmas trees, and low voltage switchgear. Now, all 3 specifications are now completed and published, and on 20th of October, the planning for phase 2 of the project began. Up to another 10 specifications are planned to be worked on during 2017 as we continue to ramp up our efforts in this area. But how do manufacturers feel about this? So far, the reaction has been positive, and they're engaging with the process. Now, you might ask yourself, what's all this got to do with the topic of today? It's plenty, because the simpler, more uniform we can make upstream facilities, the more efficient we make ourselves, and the less we expose our people to confusion and potential error. Which brings us back to human factors and competencies. Our JIP 33 envisages a future that standardizes kit wherever possible, so no matter where you work, you're familiar with the equipment you're handling. What could be more fit for the future than that? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to our panel of speakers, Gordon, Robert, and John, for sharing and enlightening our delegates and having your vocal views regarding what needs to be done so the industry can be fit for the future. And now we have about 5 to 10 minutes for the open forum. Do we have any questions from our delegates today? Yes, sir. Do you have a mic? Thank you very much. Your name, please, and the company you're from.
Yes, my name is Barry Howard. I'm with McDermott International Asia Pacific office here in KL. The question is to anyone on the panel who wishes to take it. 2 down cycles ago, I recall 97, working in Aberdeen, oil price one day hit $9 a barrel. It was hovering around 12. It went down to 9. During that phase, we have a program led by the operators, BP, Shell, and a number of tier 1 contractors called CRINE, Cost Reduction in the New Era. Some of you may be familiar with that. Great initiative. What was the theme of CRINE? Standardization. So 20 years on, 2 down cycles later, we're talking about standardization. So it's good to hear it. My question to the panel is, can we really do it this time? Is this sustainable? Because this down cycle feels a lot different from that one in 97. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, can it be done? Gordon, would you like to answer that question?
So, you're right, CRINE, and one of the big issues that exposes is it's completely endemic in our industry. So CRINE was a North Sea initiative. And the difference with what we're doing just now is, one is it's a global initiative, but you're right in that you heard it a lot. One of the questions is, why in our industry? Why have we let this happen? Why is our industry so different from everyone else? Why have we managed to have inflation of, 2.5 times over the last 7 years, where you can build a standard 10K Christmas tree and it'll cost you 2.5 times as much as it did 10 years ago, where any other industry will be looking at reducing cost. We start congratulating ourselves when we get back to the same cost of 10 years ago. Other industries, we say that's completely unacceptable. They would look to decrease the cost. So the proof will be, of course, in executing it. One of the issues is that it does feel different this time. We really do have a challenge. I think it feels to me that the effort being put into this is a lot bigger. Certainly the ones we're involved in, the JIP 33, has got a far bigger effort than I've seen before. But it'll come down to people implementing them. It'll come down to the companies sending out, for instance, the specifications, and I'll tell you in a year's time. If in a year's time you're getting specifications, and that we're producing them, and that we're getting the shorter lead times, then it's worked. But until then, I can't promise you all. Let's say there's certainly more effort going into it this time than before.
Work in progress. Robert, John, would you like to add to that?
I'd say probably, we've got to remove the protectionism. There's certain things we will protect. There's certain things we don't have to protect. I believe the downturn this time is pretty serious. We've already seen a few companies roll over. What we're also seeing is we're seeing a lot more mergers. And what I've definitely seen on our side is a lot more open communication with the players. And I think we're all crying and we're all saying we need to do something. I think what we're going to do is just make sure that momentum doesn't go to sleep. And when the good times come back, we're reminded of these times. Because I think that's the issue. We're greedy, and we've got to stop the greed. We just got to work as one. And on this particular subject, I think we can work as one. Standardization is good for business. It's very good for business.
Would you like to pinch in?
The only thing I'd say is that the kind of boom to bust mentality isn't good to attract either investors or to attract the new generation of workers. There's 40 million people that could work in the oil and gas sector that work in other sectors in the 5 regions of the world where OPITO operates. And these guys have got choices as well. And I think sometimes how a business performs, it performs best when the business isn't doing well. You can see the real belief in values from the top. And I think on some of the things that we've done, some of the people who've just stood up in front of family members, employees, where they've had to get rid of a lot of people, perhaps they could have done it in different ways, but I think there's a lot of credibility being lost, especially in the North Sea at the moment. And I think people will be watching that and seeing how the industry behaves. I think the industry probably needs to get a bit more sophisticated in terms of how it tells its story, because there are a lot of good things going on, and technology can help improve that story.
All right, thank you, gentlemen, for your responses. Do we have more questions from the floor? Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon. My name is Shirley from McDermott. I would like to address my question to Robert Morgan. Hi, Robert.
Hi, Shirley.
Yeah, I actually fully support digital learning, and I would like to take the maximum advantage of it and now in the future. What I would like to get from you, or to get advice from your recommendation, is what are the quality assurance checks that we can do to verify the effectiveness of online learning to ensure that our employees or our learners take the maximum benefit from digital learning?
Okay. I'll take it. I'll
Please,
take it with that. Thanks. Well, I think, first of all, you can test and you can start to track how people do things. Assessment and the transfer of bits of knowledge that are provided on a just-in-time basis to help top people up. So sometimes we launched a competency service a few years back. Too complicated, too expensive, and as soon as the price started to draw, and it's not the price really, it's the confidence and lack of confidence that goes with it, all of that went. So I'm in favor of the worker having their competency verified by someone and that they look after it. Ultimately, it's their career, and I'm not sure the worker can trust who they work for always. The interests are not always aligned. So I think you've got to work quite hard at it. I think there's new techniques that have been used in other sectors that can be used in our industry. Some of the things we've used in our industry here are really quite advanced, and there's a number of other industries haven't used adaptive learning, haven't looked at using different techniques to freshen the experience and all the rest of it. So sometimes I can understand beating people up, but also I think recognize that if people have been very successful in what they've done previously, why would you need to change? And I think, certainly from me, I've worked in more industries and longer outside oil and gas. But sometimes when the best managers or the best ones to employ are people that are used to working through hard times. They've got a battle-hardened approach, and also they tend to be more creative. And organizations tend to change better because there's a tenure to do that. So I think using all of these things, I don't think there's one magic wand. And I also think some of the technology, I've been in debate with training providers over my period with Atlas, and it's not a question of digital learning's better than practical learning. That's not the issue. The issue is how can we bring technology in to help the on-the-job experience for all. We can test the workers before we go in and tailor the programs to the individual needs of the worker. And I think that's the real battleground.
But how quickly are workers adapting to technology?
Well, it's happening all the time. You know, it's very easy to say you've got all these young guys that really get it. We've been using with MIST way back to 2006, and a large number of the people that do that are probably well into their 50s. And these guys get the technology as much as anything. And I think the onus is on people like us to copy the kind of Apple model, if you will, and try to make it as intuitive as they can, and try and make it as relevant and as enjoyable as they can. You know, if you play a game and you get some stimulation from that, why would you want to sit for 2.5 hours and go through something where the best you can look forward to is a cup of coffee or a cup of tea? So I think we all need to get a bit smarter, and that includes people in my sector as well.
All right, thank you very much, Robert. We have more questions? Yes, sir. The gentleman in the middle. We have time maybe for another 2 or 3 questions. Yes, sir.
Hi, Kerry Williams from Sapura Kanchana Drilling. It was mentioned there that the operators like BP, Shell and all that, they have different standards, as John mentioned there. Is OPITO and IOGC also looking at government bodies and their regulations? For example, here in this region, on some training, it's different. We have to have for Malaysia, Thailand, and they're completely different. So are you looking at communicating with these government bodies to standardise or have your training recognised by them?
And this question is directed to whom, sir?
Probably IOGP and OPITO, guys.
I'll take that one. So OPITO, absolutely. We heard today, and we know a bit more, whether it's here in Malaysia, Indonesia, or Oman, Abu Dhabi, we work closely with the regulators, with the national oil industry to get that done. So in the safety training, it's in the DNA. We're in 47 countries and growing, and it's all about the same standards in each country. If we could do that with the other things, we'd be in good shape. You talked about the standards similar to the oil companies. So as IOGP, individual countries, we work through the national oil associations. However, we do work with the International Regulator Forum, which is probably the biggest offshore regulator forum. So we work with them, and in fact, they had their annual meeting just a couple of weeks ago, and one of the things we encouraged them to do was set up again their standards body to try and drive this through, and we'll work with them on that. So we put as much effort in with them because in the end, the regulators set, I suppose, their specific standards, and what we encourage them to do is use similar standards across certainly across the region and preferably globally. So it's a target for us, absolutely.
A question here for John regarding training providers. John, what needs to be basically done to be able to achieve an ideal or perfect HSE despite the existing challenges?
I'm a sort of a mix here. I think the online staff technology is a wonderful thing, but I mean, we've got to get the guys in the field. I mean, there's nothing more frustrating to me when I talk to engineers and we've had a problem, say, on a commissioning phase, and the engineer has never seen the end product. We've got to get the engineers as a part of their training programs to maybe do a BBS type program at the beginning. They've got to actually understand how to communicate and how to talk when they're in the field. The guys in the office have got to actually understand how they need to talk to the people in the field. The training provider doesn't do that. They come up with a list of slides, or they come up with a list of things that they feel we need, without actually coming to us and saying, what do you need? And then developing some or customizing it to suit that need. And I think, it comes to the individuals. It comes to the individuals. You can break it down into disciplines. We're trying to capture everything in one. It's not the same. Every project is different. Every area is different. And one of the things you've got to do is you've got to capture the culture of that as well. So the training providers have got to consider the people they're dealing with, not just what the outcome is. I don't know if I've answered the question, but that's what I feel.
Thank you very much. Do we have any more questions? Yes, sir. The gentleman over there at the back.
Good afternoon, gentlemen and ladies. My name is Mungadi Ahmad Umar. I'm from Department of Petroleum Resources, Nigeria. DPR is a regulator. Mine is a rider on the last question that has been asked. Who is in the best place to standardize HSE management systems of all companies? It has been suggested like should be regulators, but there's a challenge that we know exists. Regulators will probably bring out a standard, but most companies will tell you, especially the IOCs, they operate above the standards set by government. So can we just think again about it? Who is in the best position to standardize these management systems? Should there be forums for operators? Because it is operators that engage, let's say, contractors, service providers. Or do we actually believe it should be regulated, standardized by regulators? That is one. Then the second one I have been hesitant to ask, is just a question that I have in my mind since morning. But John Christian actually mentioned something that is encouraging me to ask. Why is it that in this conference we don't have any young people? I don't know, maybe OPITO has an answer to that. I guess I'm doing this around here. I'm 33 years old. Thank you very much.
All right. The first question should be directed to Gordon. So which particular group, organization should oversee the standardization?
So in the pyramid, at the top, you'll always have the regulators. That's their job. They can regulate in their country what they wish. Now, under that, you'll have companies will have their standards. You'll have international standards bodies. You'll have the API, ISO. You have guidelines from people like ourselves or OPITO. So in the end, ultimately, it's the regulators. What we encourage them to do, and we've discussed this with people like IRF, is, and in fact also with, for instance, Best in America, is use existing standards. Don't reinvent. Look what other bodies are doing and pick that. As you say, you know, we have pretty good systems. Where the problems are is when everyone starts picking different ones. So certainly OPITO is fundamental. You know, they're pushing these standards, and for instance, what we're trying to do in the United States is go from no standard or individual standards or company standards to a standard that is actually international. Ultimately, though, it is for the regulators, and regulators will set the standards in their countries, but we want to encourage them to talk to the other regulators and also talk to the international bodies like ourselves and use what others use.
All right. There was a question for you, John, which I didn't quite understand. Did you pick it up?
I just actually heard that we've got to be younger. And I thought, I'd love to be younger, but I'm not sure. I'll make a comment. I think industry's got to run the standards. I mean, if you go back to 72, the UK, they said we're over-regulated. We've got to become a self-regulated industry, and we're going away from that. I mean, we was going down a really good track where the industry was taking control because we was held responsible for the things we were doing. And that's what it should be. The regulators, I think, I'm not having to go in the regulators, sometimes they step in but they don't really understand what they're doing. Or they introduce a regulation which we can't achieve. Industry has got to be standing up, and I think when you talk about standardisation now, is the key players have got to be going and talking to the regulator and saying, this is what we need. And I think most countries we work in, their standards are pretty low. And we can normally achieve those standards. So maybe we've got to assist more the regulators instead of saying the regulator is the person who's supposed to impose the regulation. I don't want them to impose the regulation. I want industry to stand up and put a standard in there which is fair and can be achieved.
All right. Thank you very much. And maybe before we go, we have about 10 seconds now for each of our panelists to tell us, are businesses in the oil and gas industry fit for the future? Let's start off with you, Robert.
Thanks. I think they're getting there. I think they need to have the confidence to realize that. I think stability and price is everything. I'm quite new to this oil and gas thing, and I work in private equity. We do a lot of analysis on businesses and all that kind of stuff, trying to analyze everything. And apart from asking what the oil price is, there's very little understood about what the implications are. They look at data around assets and how much potential oil there could be there. But there's nothing that's covered anywhere that talks about how competent or how safe the behaviors are in a business. And if I was an investor, I'd want to know that before I put my money into something. So I think it is fit for the business. I think it's still a great sector. A lot of the other sectors we've tried to diversify into, the fact we've worked in oil and gas in 116 countries for 20 years is a big plus. And, you know, slowness and adoption isn't just something to the oil and gas sector. All large organizations get caught up in that. And I think it's really about how the training providers can navigate their way through that kind of swamp of corporatism and get straight to the point. And also, I think the individual can really play a big part here.
That was more than 10 seconds. All right, John, what about yourself? Yes.
10 seconds. I think
Soundbite.
I think the industry is a very good industry. I think how we've got to better communicate. I think people look at our industry as being dirty and a dangerous industry. We've got to remove that. It's not dangerous. It's the work practices that happen in the industry that's dangerous. We've got to get out there and attract the young people into our industry. By not waiting for the universities, we've got to get into the preschools and the schools and talk to the family and educate them and say this industry is a damn good industry and it's still needed.
All right. Thank you very much, John. And Gordon?
So if companies aren't fit, they better get fit because it's very tough out there, and our industry is going to be around for a long time. So you've heard a lot today. Hopefully you picked up quite a few ideas. Good companies will always survive.
All right. On that note, let's give a big round of applause to our industry panel session. A challenging environment, but a great future ahead. Robert Morgan, Chairman of Atlas Knowledge, John Christian from TechNip, and Gordon Ballard from IOGP. And that ends our conference for today, the 7th Annual OPITO Safety and Competence Conference 2016. Let's give our speakers this morning and this afternoon a big round of applause.